Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 127. I hope you're all having a beautiful weekend so far, and we have so much to get into today. It will be a part 2 to last week's Black Swan Decoded, and I'm going to be sharing a presentation on this song right here and the importance of it. But before we get into that, again, welcome. Hope you're all doing amazing. Get relaxed. Get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning, or a glass of wine or beer or beverage of your choice if it's the nighttime. I hope you're all doing amazing today. And if you're new here, welcome to the Wolf Pack. It's so great to have you with us in the start of this crucial month of September, just weeks before the end of the Jubilee. And if you have yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username and the last 4 numbers after your username, and I will reply back to you with a direct message on Patreon with your Discord server invite. That's the only way that I'll be able to get you onboarded. And we're doing really well with our altcoin voting system as usual, but we did get a lot of comments in last week's podcast, which I appreciate. It was so great to see the interaction, but not so much thumbs up on the coin submissions. So just make sure that you guys actually go in there and like whatever the coin submissions are that other members have posted. You don't need to post one yourself. You can just help out by giving a thumbs up or a heart, whatever that emoji is, to whoever wrote a post of a coin that you're interested in, and we will cover the ones that get the most votes in the next podcast. Today, we're actually going to be covering Hex, eHex, and pHex, because a lot of people want to know what's going on with Pulse. And since Hex hit my price target that I shared on the past couple interviews that I've been on, so we're going to be covering that today, as well as getting into the charts of Injective, Icon, and Multivac. I do believe we're going to take a moment to go through the traditional markets and just give a recap of the Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, maybe look at the US dollar currency index before we get into our usual Bitcoin, ETH, and XRP analysis. So there's going to be so much in today's podcast as usual. I've been getting so much amazing feedback about how everyone feels in regards to the last 3-4 podcasts I've released. All of you have been incredible, and I'm very grateful for every single one of you and the support, and it really keeps me motivated when I'm hearing that people enjoy the format and everything that we're doing here. So it's been amazing to take the time, carve out the time to get into preparing these podcasts, and it's just this incredible flow state that I've accessed over the past, month, 2 months with these particularly. And I think it has a lot to do with just the energy that's going on right now in the realm. A lot has been going on. I know a lot of you feel it. We have Mercury station retrograde for the next about 11 days or so, and we're heading into this crucial end of the Jubilee. We've been having a lot of rituals happening left and right. We're going to share a couple of words of wisdom on this recent Burning Man ritual that's just happened. It's funny because I had somebody ask me in a live stream a couple weeks ago about my thoughts on Burning Man and all of that. And then recently, you guys know I've shared my thoughts about water rituals incoming, and I'd spoken about it directly on the last decode that I came out with on last week's Red Pill podcast, the Black Swan Decoded. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of that today, but just to kick things off regarding price action, because we have had a little pumpy dumpy moment, I was thinking about how Bitcoin's price action might actually be giving us a clue of what's to come. Now we're going to be talking from the perspective of a decoder right now, not necessarily technicals. It's going to be a little bit more experimental, but we will be getting, of course, into the analysis, traditional analysis later in today's podcast. But getting back to this idea of how Bitcoin's price action might be giving us a clue of what's to come, I want everyone to consider how this Bitcoin yearly high so far is at $31,000. And the last time that we were at 31K was actually June 8th of 2022. And when we connect that to the first time that we've hit 31K since, it was the date of June 23rd of this year. So we have hitting 31K for the last time in the month of June, and then over recently hitting it for the first time since, also in the month of June. And I want to point out how the exact time frame between the last time it was at that level to the next time it hit took exactly 380 days. Now, if you've been paying attention to the podcast lately, you've been hearing me talk a lot about these numbers 36 through 39 and how it's tied into this idea of from lead to gold, and how this time frame around September is so crucial and why we believe that we're getting these rituals that happen around this time. And if we look at all the historic market crashes, they're typically around this time frame between September into October. So I shared that all in the last Red Pill podcast. If you're brand new here and you haven't watched that one yet, maybe you should go check it out because it's packed with information. And like I said in the beginning of today's podcast, that this is a part 2 essentially to take a lot of what we spoke about in last week's podcast and build off of it. Okay, so this 380, what we're going to do is what we always do by removing the 0, and now we're back at that number 38. And I want you to think about how we're talking about 31,000 and how 31 is 3 ones, or 111, and how the date of 9/11, it happens on the day that leaves 111 days in the year, and how this event happened in New York, the 111 code. So is it a coincidence we have this theme on this exact year when we're about to have the 22nd anniversary of 9/11? And remember how last week I told everyone we need to watch out for the 38th week of the year. This is again where that number 38 comes back into play. And we just went over that 38 code in Bitcoin that I just exposed, how 380 days apart from the 31K target. And I actually made a video talking about the 31K specifically on a YouTube video. It's free for everyone to go watch. I mean, it was public, and at the time it was wild how we were able to determine that we would hit 31K at that exact time frame. So that was pretty cool. Definitely go check that out on my YouTube channel. You'll be able to find it pretty easily because I think I put the number 31,000 in the actual video title. So getting back to this, thus far, this seems to be our high, and we had this deeper correction. And again, we'll get to the analysis later and we can entertain higher price targets then. But I just wanted to talk about how this 3-1 and how it's more esoteric to look at it as 3 ones, 111, and that tying to New York. And then we had this 38 number showing up, and how we have the 38th week of this year, and how the 38th week of this year starts on September 18th. You could see that right there. And it ends on September 24th, meaning that it starts on the first official day of the new Hebrew year, and it ends on the day before Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And gold by the code equals 38. You can see that right here. And we're moving from lead to gold, going from Jubilee. And this is really, really critical right now because we're aware, while most of humanity has no idea, and all these big market corrections that have happened and all of these black swan events or psyops, they are always in alignment with this code. We have 2001, what happened with 9/11. 7 years later, we have the 2008 housing market crisis, both happening in September. And we see this cyclically quite often. So just wanted to get back to what we were discussing about the 38th, 39th week of the year and how all of this is tied in. We have the 39th week, which will be the following day, from obviously what we were just talking about a moment ago, but I want to just talk about how we have 39th week starting on September 25th. That is literally the day of Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur giving you 39 by the code. It's so perfectly in alignment right now. And if we go to September 25th, I'm going to show you that. We have days left in the year, 97 days left in the year, and I've shared this also some weeks ago that the 97 code shows up in Poseidon, and we always utilize our mythologies here. So Poseidon giving you that 97, God of the seas, the oceans. This means water rituals to me. And it's interesting how we were talking about the 38 earlier. We could see right there 38 in Poseidon, Neptune, also giving you 38 in a very powerful cipher, Chaldean. Now, we were also talking about that gold with the 38 and how 38th week of the year is the week after the end of Jubilee. This was how we were starting to identify when to anticipate a Black Swan event. And I shared this weeks ago, and then a couple of people started sending me aerial images of Burning Man. And we're going to go to that picture really quickly. Thanks to the people that shared this with me. And you could see that it looks like a Greek theater, essentially. So this is really fascinating. We were talking about mythology moments ago, Greek, Roman mythology. This is a horseshoe magnet. This is clearly ritualized, and now it's getting flooded. Before we were talking about Poseidon and the waters. Think about this, family. This decoding system we have here has proven itself over and over and over again, and I'm not here to flex at all. It's just because we're using something that's bigger than what most people come back to as their reference point, and that is mythology. A lot of people that get into astrology, they have no idea of their mythology. Therefore, they're basing it on nothing. And this is harming, the mind of man when we're just taking things, the exoteric stuff, and we give up there. So that's what's making our system here so incredibly useful, and it's proven itself in real life time and time again. And anyone who watched the Super Bowl decode that I put out, or the Year of the Rabbit, or anything pretty much this year in regards to the big, full-length presentations, you can see how it's playing itself out. And the statements that I made about how if we're going to have a Black Swan event, that I believe it will be water. It will not be a blackout as we've been told. It will not be fire. It will be water-based. Now, I'm talking about the big one. I know we've had smaller events, of course, but nothing that's been as cataclysmic as some people might have assumed. And that, again, it's all been in timing for this later half of September. A lot of people in other communities that have come to this one from those communities such as Jason's over at Archaics and Logan, Decode Your Reality, and all the other great decoders. I know Donut Factory has been talking a lot about stuff like this. One-on-one podcasts, all of these great, artists that are out here. And I'm giving them all a shout out because there are people. They all have their own perspectives, and it's pretty obvious to me that everyone's aligning with this month of September. And for me, it really feels like those fire rituals that were to start were the start of a story. And I'm gonna get into that in a moment. But I'm sure someone here remembers me saying that first we have the fires or the burning rituals, and then we have the water rituals, because this is tied to the symbolism of Aquarius, which is an air sign, but it's a man bearing a pitcher of water, which symbolizes controlling the elements or influencing the elements. Think about this, family. That's what dew is, okay? I know that I can't say it here, but you get the acronym, all right? So, Burning Man has the word burning literally in it. Then it gets a heavy rainstorm, leads to essentially the Nevada desert turning into mud. Classic ritual. This is why I don't get myself involved in this mess. It's all a prana harvest, and I've been saying this the entire year. This is the year that you must protect your prana out of all years, and only the strong will survive this shift. And your strength is your ability to stay focused on your life and not caught up in these exoteric, quasi-spiritual, Eastern spiritual ritual gatherings. So we have the water rituals happening as we speak, and it's affecting the masses, and this is just the beginning. Now, let's pivot over to this message that I shared a couple weeks ago over on my Twitter account, and it's this post from August 22nd. And I'm just going to break this down piece by piece, and then we're going to get into a full decode for Wake Me Up When September Ends. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this today. So, what's going on here, I posted this a couple days before the Trump arrest, And I also kind of talked about that in depth last week in last week's podcast. So we don't need to touch on that. Just go rewatch that if needed. And I shared this bounce into Blue Moon to kick things off. And that August 29th in crypto, we saw a big green candle, stuff going on with Grayscale and etc. Anyways, that's exoteric, doesn't matter. But if we look at the stock market, we could see very clearly what's going on. So looking at the Dow Jones, and we literally bounced from August 24th, the day of what happened with Trump, all the way up into our Blue Moon on August 31st, making a microcycle top. Incredible how that played out. Then I stated flowed into the 36th, which is the 36th week of the year, which is essentially what we did. We're starting the 36th week of the year tomorrow. Okay, and that's what we did. Like a balloon, we floated straight into that moment. Then in going back to this post, in 2 weeks, we have the Jubilee. You guys know it's the end of Jubilee, which is when I predict after Jubilee to have a black swan. And you guys know I don't like using the word predict. I don't use it lightly because I don't want to be a predictions guy. It's just not my essence. You know, a leader doesn't need to make predictions. A leader takes action in the present moment to inspire actions for those who resonate with him. These inspired actions allow us to feel purpose, and feeling purpose is the only thing that matters, because that is the only time you'll taste love. Everything else will be quicksand, and a man who needs to receive prana from his predictions is simply a man who wants you to dwell in the quicksand with him, and that is not me. My words inspire self-reliance, not followers. None of you here today are followers, none of you. This is why I always say I am speaking to the ears of leadership. Let that soak in. We're a community of leadership. That is what makes us sovereign in the spirit realm. This matrix is just a momentary visit. The body is just a rental car. We give it back someday. So it's important that we think about this stuff, okay? Because everything that is based in tomorrow is just something here we play with. It's just play. It's not a game. The game is for the masses. Games have rules. Leaders learn how to be disobedient. They break rules, or they learn how to break rules and not get caught. You're a glitch in this matrix. That's all that means. So the next phase of all of this, c'est la vie, French for that's life, and that's exactly our reaction to this black swan. Whilst most people are going to be blindsided by it, we've been prepared for ages. Then we have Wake Me Up When September Ends, which is from the song by the band Green Day. So now let's get into this short and sweet decode I put together for all of you to prepare us with even more evidence of this incoming black swan event. Now, I'm just going to go through some of the basic code here. Again, this is a song from the band Green Day. So we're just going to quickly start with our keywords. This is what we always do. And Green Day has 79, just like gold on the periodic table is the 79th element. You can see that right there. Remember before we were talking about how gold equals 38, and we're moving into the 38th week of the year. We've been talking a lot lately about how Rosh Hashanah and Hebrew New Year leads into the 38th week of the year. That's the week that ends Jubilee. So, of course, Green Day instantly has this code. What a coincidence. So, the number 79 is the 22nd prime number, just like how we're about to have the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, which is literally during the week of Rosh Hashanah, the same exact week. So, now that we laid out the foundation, let's get into this slide that I put together for this presentation of the song Wake Me Up When September Ends. I apologize if this is difficult to read. I will do my best to take this step by step. And because you guys are hearing a recording of me doing this, of course, you could just take notes as you go. For whatever reason, I just got this all shrunk down very small. I wanted to fit it onto one slide to make things nice, clean, and simple, but it does kind of distort the quality. Anyways, if we take from the day that this song was released, the single of this song was released, which was on June 13th of 2005, and we move it into this time frame we're in right now as we're recording this, I saw that we get very close to a particular number that you guys are well aware of, which is the 666. So if we were to just type this in really quickly, I'm going to go from June 13, 2005 over here. And we're going to go to September. And I want to go exactly to the 666 number, and that is the 7th of September. Why this is so powerful is because septem means 7. So we have 7, 7, 7. 2 plus 2 plus 3, our year, is a 7. Think about this. How insane how this song, the single, was released into this exact 778 esoteric numerology by 6,660 days. So I decided to take it just one step further and look at this code from a perspective that we've been talking about a lot lately, which comes back to this number 24. So naturally, we have Wednesday, September 13th being 6,666 days from when this song had the single released. And 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 equals 24. We're moving into the Hebrew year of 5,784. That'll be this next Rosh Hashanah. That adds up to 24. This song on their album, which was called American Idiot, was released in September 2004. You take the zeros away from 2004 in the rules of numerology, you end up with 24. So this 6,666 connection is crucial, and it makes this date of September 13th significant. So then I went ahead and I plugged in the singer's birthday, his next birthday, just for fun, to see if I get any code here. I plugged in Billy Joe Armstrong's next birthday, which is on February 17th, 2024. And what we get here is this connection of 22 weeks and 3 days. So just to quickly kind of catch you guys up to what's going on right now, we took from when this single was released on June 13th, 2005, and moved it over to 6,666 days, which is just 2 days shy of Rosh Hashanah. And then we connected that date that we discovered to his birthday. It equals 22 weeks and 3 days, just like we're in the year of 2023, the 223 code, the mirror of 322, skull and bones, tied to Saturn, the Grim Reaper, death, the death card in tarot. And this is tied to Rosh Hashanah, okay? And his month, the month of Saturn, is September. So what's even more wild is 22 weeks and 3 days is exactly 157 days. And you could see right here that 157 is the 37th prime number. And the 37th week of this year is the week that starts with the 22nd anniversary of 9/11, and it ends with the end of the Jubilee. Coincidence? The singer was also born during a Shemitah year. He was born in 1972. You guys have heard me bring this up a lot, how we had the Nixon shock in 71. We had Nixon's resignation in 74. We had, back then, the Shemitah of 72, 73, which then led to the 73 to 75 recession. This was all tied to Nixon and the gold standard and everything that was going on back then, the non-convertibility of gold. So just interesting how this player character who's in this famous band and tied to all of this, and he comes out with this song, which if you watch the music video, it's pretty incredible. They're revealing a lot of what's going on there. I'm not allowed to pull that up on this video because I believe it will create some copyright stuff, but needless to say, you can just go back and watch it for yourself, and you're going to see what I mean. Like the transition of scenery and how it goes from, this couple talking about they love each other to this guy going off to war. I mean, it's wild. It's really wild. How does that have anything to do with the song? And actually, really quickly, now that I have this on my mind, I didn't have this planned for today, but I do need to bring up the lyrics. I think this will be very important for everyone. Okay. Summer has come and passed. The innocent can never last. Wake me up when September ends. Like my father's come to pass. Who is the father? It is Saturn. 7 years has gone so fast. That's Saturn's number. September is the 7th month. Okay? Here comes the rain again. I'll just leave that there. I have nothing more to say. This will be water rituals, okay? That's all. It will be water rituals. What's going on right now with Burning Man is a water ritual. We're in September. Septem, the 7th month. It's all here in the lyrics of this very simple song. Go watch the music video. So, getting back to this, the singer was born in a Shemitah year, which that means that he has Saturnian energy behind him. He has a Saturnian influence in a sense. And if we look at his birthday being February 17th in sidereal astrology, that makes him an Aquarius, okay? Which is ruled by Saturn. I could show you the code too that supports this. We got Aquarius giving you 21. We have Saturn giving you 21. Now, there is a debate whether Aquarius is ruled by Saturn or Uranus, and I say both, father and son. But we'll get to that another time because we need to stay on track here. Just remember, this 37 connection I was talking about earlier becomes 3 sevens, which is 777. We're talking about it with this slide right over here. 22 weeks and 3 days before his next birthday, he would be 1 year old in the year 73. The mirror of 73 is 37. 22 weeks and 3 days. The mirror of skull and bones is 157 days, which is the 37th prime. The mirror of 73. It's a very in-your-face code. So 37 is 3 sevens. That's 777. That adds up to 21. Like we were talking before about Aquarius and Saturn. So this guy was born on a Shemitah year, and he is about to turn 52 years old, just like we're currently in the year of the rabbit equals 52, during this very special Jubilee year. Now, it's important we remember the mythology here for a moment with the Shemitah, and how the Shemitah year is Saturn's year. He was born on a Shemitah year. And the Jubilee, which only comes around once every 50 years, is when Saturn has his final hurrah before being defeated by his son, Jupiter or Zeus. Remember, this number 24 is directly tied to the symbolism of Jupiter's zodiac logo. Now, this guy's name, if we type it out, considering we're talking about the number 24 here, Billy Joe Armstrong equals 204. You remove the 0, as always, you get to 24. How coded in can this guy and his band and this song be to all of this? 24 in his name. We're about to move into the Hebrew year that adds up to 24. In the year of 2024, right around the corner. All of this is Jupiterian as well. And that, again, has everything to do with Jubilee specifically. This mythological story of Jupiter defeating his father. This is Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, Anakin. Now, some people might ask, what does this term, "Wake Me Up When September Ends," mean? What does this song mean to me? Well, for me, from an esoteric perspective, I think we need to go to the Hebrew calendar. And this has everything to do with the month of Tishri. So for me, I believe "Wake Me Up When September Ends" means the end of Tishri, which this year, the last day of Tishri, is on October 15th. The reason that is so important is because that is literally the day after our annual solar eclipse. October 15th lands on a Sunday, day of the sun, Sol. This is the day after the solar eclipse, and it is literally the last day of Tishri. Wake me up when September ends. Remember, this is the first eclipse, the first solar eclipse of what is being called the Great American Eclipse, which is the two eclipses that form an X over the United States. We know Twitter just became X and all of the X symbolism. If you look at the Burning Man logo, you will see it is the X and the diamond on top, as above, so below. Think about this, family. This was ritualized on purpose for this moment. But getting back to the Great American Eclipse between October 14th, that will be right there at the end of Tishri, and April 8th of 2024, in the mythology, they believed an eclipse happened when a dragon swallowed the sun. 2024 is the Chinese year of the dragon. In the mythology of Saturn, you learn that Saturn would swallow his children. A lot of people take this literally because people learn about Saturn typically from Jordan Maxwell. And because we're aware of what the elite and apex predator are up to, their nefarious shit, we have this kind of literal, idea of the eating of the children. But it's much more simple than that, family, okay? Saturn was the son of Silas, Uranus, and he swallowed a sun. This is the eclipse, the sun ring. He is the Lord of the Rings. Don't take it literally. It's all parable. So to me, it seems like this song is giving us a lot of clues of the timing of all of this. We know that from the end of this Jubilee and from Tishri 1 to Tishri 30 is the time frame to pay the most attention. That would be September 16th to October 15th. But there needs to be a trigger event, and that's what we've already figured out. We already dialed this in, and it has everything to do with Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. 4 days before Rosh Hashanah will be September 13th, that day that we found earlier in our decode. Then if we take 4 days after Rosh Hashanah, we have the 21st of September. We always treat time like a ripple effect going forwards and backwards. And note how this album, American Idiot, that has this song, it was released on the 21st of September. 4 days before is the date that we figured out. 4 days after correlates perfectly to this exact album. And then 4 days after that date would be September 25th, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So think about this. It's a trinity of the fours, the 444. Now I'm just going to quickly go through this bottom section, final note, and then we're going to move on to some final thoughts. So we were talking about September 21st just moments ago. This year, it will be the 19th anniversary of this particular album. The number 19 is tied to the, I'm not going to say this word, and also 1 is A and 9 is I. And we know that we're in the age of AI, and this particular year, we saw it unfold very quickly with chatbots and what's going on with, Bard and ChatGPT. We're all aware of this. This is clearly the year to push that hardcore into the hands of just normal people. And we know we're in this age of AI. It's pretty obvious. It's more noticeable than now than ever. So since this album came out in 2004, which is that 24 code, and the 19th anniversary will be in the Hebrew year that adds up to this 24, this is very significant. And the song Wake Me Up When September Ends, the single was released in 2005, that 25 code. Billy Joe Armstrong is about to be 52, the mirror of that into that year of the dragon. And we're currently in the year of the rabbit, which rabbit equals 52 and 25 in Gematria. From September 18th, which is the new Hebrew year essentially, which has a 25 date numerology, until the end of the year of the rabbit, which will be on February 9th of 2024. That equals exactly 144 days, the square root of 12. And then you would break that down by 12 12s, or 12 plus 12 is 24, tied to the new Hebrew year. And February 9th lands on a 19 date numerology, tied right back to artificial intelligence. So I wouldn't be shocked if during these dates I shared, we have some significant advancements with AI transitioning us into the year of the dragon, while we are simultaneously in the year with this 24 code, which connects to Jupiter. Lots of fire symbolism to come in 2024. And this ritual that happened in Hawaii was just the start in preparation for what they're going to do with this new technology. So that's the Wake Me Up When September Ends Decoded. I hope you guys enjoyed that. This was packed full of information. I really hope you were taking notes, because this takes everything that I shared last week with the Black Swan Decoded and really, really adds those final touches. You know, we have the concept of a trigger event, what I'm calling it, tied to number 1, the 22nd anniversary of 9/11. Then we have number 2, the end of Jubilee. Then we have number 3, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, until the end of Tishri, which is the next solar eclipse. That's our unholy trinity to consider. And to add even more weight to the last thing that I just mentioned before we wrap up today's decode, we were talking about the end of Tishri, which is October 15th. And we could see right here that that date lands on the day leaving 77 days in the year. And if we go to this date of Yom Kippur, which is 9/25 of this year, you can see that has a 77 double-digit date numerology. And I shared this in my last YouTube video. This 77 is incredibly significant this year out of all years, because this is the year of the Jubilee, 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah. We're in a historic moment right now, and we're some of the few people that actually are aware of what's going on. It's beautiful to be here with all of you. Seriously, to be aware amongst the sea of the confused. So let's get into the crypto market and pretty much do a quick recap of the traditional markets. And then, of course, we're going to be getting into the altcoins. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know some of your thoughts in our Discord. If there's anything else that, you guys have been sparked with influence by, perhaps during today's decode. So I'm going to go over to the Dow Jones. Looks like we're already there. We have floated into the 36, as I shared. Also, if you guys aren't following over here, definitely you'll be able to get some updates. And I shared with everyone last week how it's definitely important to go over to my website, WatersAbove.com, and sign up for my free email list, just because of some things that have happened recently on my channel. So getting back to this, we have moved up into this monthly close for the Dow Jones. Let's look at the monthly. I do not believe that we did not close green at all. We closed 2% down on the Dow, closed about less than 2% down on the S&P, and a really good buyback on the NASDAQ. I mean, pretty noticeable hammer candle there. So what happened is fascinating. The fact that we got this last minute buyback into this exact time frame, and if I was to pull a fib from this swing high to this swing low, and I'm not going to do this on every indice, I'm just going to show you on this one example. You're going to see what I'm doing here, just pulling a fib from the swing high to swing low, and we came up into this golden pocket territory with a rejection, which was in alignment with this macro 786 on this macro pull from the current all-time high on the Dow all the way down to this end of Shemitah correction, which we anticipated. So we've kind of finished the automatic rally. Right now with this buyback getting rejected at this key level on the macro, that's telling me we have the final moments here. This is essentially what that adds up to. I could do a quick little trend line here just to consider that we could be, maybe a tiny little breakout if we wanted to go a little bit higher into the next 2 weeks. But the idea of a higher high right now would be kind of weird. Now, of course, something speculative could happen to make that occur. And then right there into the next FOMC meeting on the 20th, then plug could get pulled. That's why I put this red arrow here on the 18th, which is the start of the following, basically that week that leads into the FOMC meeting. And we have these bounces here off of this blue trend line. It looks like we've just done what we typically do. So if I take off of the last day of this bounce and I move us up until we stopped out in this iteration, it's about 20 days. If I do the same here, it's about 15 days. Let me take about 15 days and see. Yeah, so it's like 2 to 3 weeks, just to be super simple. And if we were to do 2 to 3 weeks, that'd be basically next week over to Rosh Hashanah. Basically the weekly close of moving into the FOMC week. So yeah, that to me is something that keeps my mind open to the potential green move. Okay, so we got about 7%. Here we got about 6%. So if we did about 6% up, Mamma mia, yeah, that would be a new high. Yeah, that would really, really be wild to see another higher high before a deeper correction. That would really, really mess up a lot of traders. So I'm really interested to see how this goes down because we do like to interact with this trend line. We are getting stopped out here at this resistance, but we know we're in like the final moments of a moment that only comes around every 50 years. You know, this is very rare. To even be analyzing this right now and have any of this precision that we have over the past couple weeks is miraculous because of how rare this event is. You know, 50 years ago, we didn't even have tech stocks really at all. Technology was considered a completely different set of devices and ideas and theories, you know? So it's totally interesting right now to be seeing the cyclicality of it all, but then simultaneously have this novel piece to it, which is that it's the first jubilee with all this modernization. And everyone having smartphones in their pockets and being hypnotized by them every single minute of their lives. You go back to the 70s, it was a totally different world. So the market is still in a speculative essence. It's not coming back to reality. And if there's any time for it to do such, it would be after the next FOMC meeting, ideally. Let me see the dollar really quickly, and then we'll wrap up our thoughts on this so we can move it. Yeah, big green candle off of that bounce. Now, I did share the idea of a back test on this line. We literally got below it and then a V-shaped recovery right after it, which means to me that there's been a ton of money leaving crypto and going into dollars too, because the bounce and the rebound on the market is kind of ended flat. Precious metals down too, 1% on silver. So they're still treating silver and precious metals as if it's, you know, just a traded asset at this moment. It's not really a hedge. They're not moving it like one at least. Anywho, we could have this inverse kind of head and shoulders play out into October, into late September, October. That's definitely an opportunity. I'm just trying to find some final thoughts to share for anyone who's interested in basic technical analysis on the overall markets and how it could influence the crypto market. But I don't want to take up too much time with this. I do feel that this trend line is going to be a very important one, given that it's been a resistance now for 300 days, almost a full year. Breaking above this trend line on the DXY with a macro candle close, like something like a weekly, would send us up really quickly to the 0.5 fib. I don't necessarily know if we could get to the point above the 0.5 fib, but that would be in alignment with a short-term market correction, something that is very quick. And that's been something we've all anticipated. Any moves lower right now would be probably less likely until we get to like the end of Q4. Like I said many times, I feel based on Bitcoin's price action that if we do get a correction, even if we do get a correction in September into October, that by the end of this year, moving into 2024, in January 2024, Bitcoin could be right back up at 31,000. That's how quick it could recover off of these pullbacks. We know that's possible by just analyzing what happened with C19, how quick that V-shaped recovery was. Like, we're only in September, guys. We still have, a couple months left in the year, and there's going to be a lot of volatility for sure based off that next FOMC meeting. So dollar breaking above this key level at 105, I anticipate a move straight into the 0.5 fib. Then we'll see if we have a dead cat bounce kind of moment to allow for a bull run in 2024, which is kind of in alignment with what a lot of us are seeing. And in the short term, I would perceive by the end of September more up for the DXY rather than down, which will be in alignment for a correction of the market. But right now, where we're getting stopped out at is a very technical level on the Dow. Any macro closures above the 786, which is above 35,000 points, then we anticipate a double top on the year. Okay, so that would be a sharp move up to 35.7 quick. And could we hit the 888 fib on the Dow like we hit the 888 on the NASDAQ? Yes, for sure. With the amount of manipulation that they could squeeze in at the last minute before a deeper correction, absolutely. Okay, so I'll touch on this if there is anything to update in the following weeks. I might not need to next week. I could spend more time on the crypto game, but for now, it kind of just gives you a wrap up on how we had that buyback into these particular levels. And we have yet to really see it influence crypto much, which has been the theme of this year. Whilst we've seen the Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ all get into the golden pocket, some as high as the 888 fib, we did not see that with Bitcoin. We just didn't. We barely made it up to the 0.5 so far. So it's way more bearish in crypto world, but that's what it's like, right, guys? We know this. Once Bitcoin and crypto has their correction off of the blow off or whatever the bull run, whatever term you like. It's a long bear market and it's a big correction. Bitcoin actually did slightly better than it does in prior iterations. It only lost about 78%. In past iterations, the average was about 85. Same thing goes for ETH. It lost less this time around than it did the first big crash. But a lot of the altcoins smashed, 90, 95%, a lot of them 99%. And we'll be getting to that actually when we touch on Hex in a moment. But now it's time for Bitcoin analysis. I'm going to be going over this just on some of these lines, some of these drawings that we have right here. What I'm going to do is extend this out because it's clear to me that what we were holding before, which was a pattern stair-stepping up, we've broken down. And now that we've jolted back up into the same area and gotten rejected, that's a sign of weakness because a prior support that we broke through has been confirmed resistance. No bueno. And we've also had daily closure lows that are lower in our horizontal structure. So still, we need to keep in mind the last words of wisdom that I shared on Bitcoin, which is until we actually close below 25K, we're holding a higher low structure and a higher highs. So we have low, higher low, higher low, higher low, technically high, higher high, and a higher high. Until we actually have a trend reversal based off of closes, we're still holding down the fort. Doesn't look pretty, but it is what it is. So if for whatever reason Bitcoin can flip this particular level right here, which is in alignment with the 382, I think that would be a positive sign for maybe one more move back up to 32 or 30K. And right here we have the 55 simple moving average crossing pretty much heading towards this trend line is what I wanted to say, which is in alignment with the 382, which shows the potential rejection level or a level that if we overcome and just get a daily close above it, that would be positive in the short term. We also have this prior trend line over here, which is the obvious support that we had all year until recently. And this shows us that into September 15th around Rosh Hashanah, it would be like a double top rejection if we were to come back up to it. And that's kind of what I'm feeling more now because of this deeper correction that we had and just how weak and low volume Bitcoin is. There needs to be some sort of esoteric narrative to come in on this, and until that happens with like a Bitcoin ETF, I'm really feeling that if there's going to be ETF stuff, it would hit at the end of October, or November. That would be my time frame for a Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock or whomever, and I don't study too much of that. I don't really care to spend much of my time on that because I'm a decoder. I'm focused on the esoteric. I only get exoteric when people share it with me. And that's helped me serve my purpose. That's what I'm here to do. There's 99 other channels that cover the Bitcoin ETF stuff. That's not what I'm here to do. So that's just my theory on the matter. I believe we need to get through Black Swan time. Then we could have a positive Bitcoin ETF maybe in late October into November, and then boom, recovery right there into the end of Q4. Happy Christmas, happy Saturnalia, and then we keep it moving. So that tells me that it's buying opportunity time, and any weakness that we're getting in right now should not discourage anyone because we anticipated this anyways for a long time. But this gives us some stuff to consider. We have this falling trend line, which is now confirmed resistance, which is it's colliding with this 382, which is not a level to continue to get rejected below like we just recently did. And then with that 55 simple moving over into this prior microcycle top that we got in the middle of this Mercury retrograde, that does kind of show us that if we were to get above 29K daily close, moving up to this prior support and potentially getting rejected off of it as a resistance would be in perfect alignment with a lot of, what's been happening lately with the way that all markets have been moving with these major support resistance lines. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We had our monthly close and it wasn't looking so good as far as I can tell, but we should review that. Yes, we closed on a low, and this is typical in the month of August. I shared this in many of my past podcasts. We had a bi-monthly close as well, and you could see that we are actually, I would take back anything if it's feeling bearish for you right now. Like if you're feeling any bear vibes off of what I just said, just consider that we did have a resistance that was going on all the way here for about 200 to 300 days that we've flipped and we've currently been back testing. So it's not bad what we're doing at all. This is necessary. It's better for Bitcoin to slow down, build structure, and then in the future, when it's able to break these levels here of 30K, when it comes back and into, another bear market, we would have our supports there, just like we did time and time again since the genesis of Bitcoin. The same thing goes for XRP, ETH, everything else. So let me see what's going on. Okay, so we have the 8 simple on the bi-monthly sitting around 24K. That's good. It's funny, it's 24,000. We're moving into the 24 year. We just talked about that quite a bit. Let's get the monthly. We have, that's not good. If we close below this 55 simple, that's not going to look good because we've been holding it since this data has aggregated. We have this bear market moment here. Everything under this is a buying opportunity. That's about all I could say to stay optimistic here, is that anything below the 55 simple on the monthly is a buying opportunity. Let's get to the bi-weekly. We don't have a bi-weekly close until September 11th week. Getting above that 8 simple would be ideal, but right now, not looking so good. The one thing that's positive here, because it's a macro candles, is we do have a slope to the upside on the 200s. So that's looking good. Weekly, we still have our wolf cross, but we're barely holding on to the 200 exponential. So if we close the weekly below the 200 exponential, which is less likely right now because we're moving into a new moon, new moon, we typically move bullish into it. And that's in alignment with our theories that we were sharing on the, this analysis. Let me just quickly get to it for you guys. It's not deleted, is it? I know it was a red tab. Okay, it doesn't matter, but it was the Mercury retrograde analysis. Very weird, I can't find this. I hope I didn't delete that chart. That'd be a bummer. Okay, I can't waste time on that today, but needless to say, we've talked about that quite a bit too. Mercury station retrograde. We did get our move up though, technically. And we could see here on the firmament dome chart that I was just looking at before, that watch me lose it now. Okay. We talked about this too, about moving up into these targets on the outside of the firmament. And that does align us pretty nicely with the 0.5 fib, which is like also not good. It's not good because that's dead cat bounce vibes. All right, well, it does feel like a sub 25 Bitcoin is coming in this month into the start of October. It does feel like that, which again, I feel like would be an amazing buying opportunity between 20 and like 23K. So I'm going to leave it at that for now because we just are holding. We're at the same pretty much levels that we were before this bounce back in June, and now it's September. So until we break below and confirm a leg down, we're just holding a prior resistance as a new support. And the next big level of the downside would be the 236 fib. That's very typical at the end of an automatic rally. And the move to the upside to consider would just be in alignment with the current yearly high, which would be slightly lower than 32K into this 0.5 fib. So let's get to ETH. Again, like not really a whole lot to share. We're snaking around the 382 fib, trading below it now. We are below the 55, the 200s, and the 8. Looking bearish. We've made another lower low since. Nothing lower than over here, though, on March 10th. But yeah, we're kind of showing weakness now on ETH as well. This is not good for the altcoin market if that's the case. Ether runs the altcoin market. So yeah, being below the 382 here is a sign of weakness. And that tells me that a retest at 1500 is in the cards, as well as the 236. And then pretty much right there, you're going to break down pretty rapidly. That's what we do once we get to this moment. You can see it pretty normal on ETH. So I do feel confident that we should get a 1300, 1200, maybe even 1100 on some wicks on Ethereum. It'd be wild to get a double bottom opportunity, but that would make the most sense somewhere into this area in the next month. Going to go over to XRP. Same story. Okay, a little update. We had this trend line over here, which was holding through this pop and the retest, and then right there on September 1st, and the first day of the month, we started closing below it. Now we're coming back up to it, so we don't want to treat this as a resistance. We want a kickback, which should bring us back to like 53. But as of right now, what we are doing is back testing this red trend line, which I've talked about in the past. I think it's a bi-weekly chart on area. Yes. Okay. So you can see this red trend line touch at the top of 2021 in April, our alt season, then a rejection in October 2021. Then we come up to it over here in May, rejected, and then finally we broke out of it. And then lately we've actually back tested it many times when you just look at candles. You could see that clear as day. So this would be a really good level to respect for a bounce. And then that is your trend line that's been in place since almost 1,000 days, going on 900 days. So this is a significant back test, and it shows me that we're still in buying opportunity energy right here, as long as we're 50 cents and lower. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I've already shared that I do feel that the 236 and potentially even slightly lower could be in the cards for XRP in the later half of this month. Now we're going to move over to Hex. Had some updates since. I'm going to go, let me see really quickly. So Hex has hit perfectly my target that I shared of 0.003 cents on the nose. Another call that I made on Hex in advance that came to life. And I shared this through analysis on this on my last interview with Crypto Coffee over on his channel. So shout out to Crypto Coffee and his community that have come over to my work. I appreciate you guys. So now that this 0.003 target has hit, what's next, right? That's what a lot of people want to know. Well, first, let's actually go over to Pulse. We're over here now. And we're looking at PHEX, Hex on Pulse Chain. It's ticker symbol HEX/WPLS. And I'm seeing something very problematic here. By the way, this is the Red Pill podcast, and the truth is hard to swallow. So red pills are hard to swallow. I get it. So don't get offended by any of this. This isn't like, I'm not a maxi on anything. I'm a decoder. I'm not anti anything really or pro anything. I'm neutral. I'm on that middle path game. All right. So I know a lot of you that have made it this far, you're aware of that. But again, if you're new here and you're not used to the spice, well, get some water. So I'm feeling not so great about this move right here that we're seeing back on August 29th into the monthly close. It's very problematic with this lower low that we got over here in August 25th and this lower high. And this bounce and a very harsh rejection at exactly 1 cent, the 1 cent level. Now, I also brought up this 1 cent level during my interactions with Randy Hilarski and how that is important to watch out for. And that if we break below a penny and get rejected, that's a sign of a new lower low. And that had everything to do with this time frame over here. That was in reference to pretty much August 9th through August 14th, before this deeper correction came in. That aligns with EHEX hitting my target of 0.003 cents. But this buyback to the 1 cent level on PHEX and this wick that you see right here and the sell wall is obvious that this is orchestrated to trap longs, to trap bulls. So again, all of this is just another lower high and the downtrend continues. So here you can see I have a target of 0.0042 cents. And I'm going to show you how I got that. It's as simple as pulling a reverse fib from the 1 cent level over here up to the current high in the structure. And you're going to see where this aligns with the 1.618, the golden ratio at the bottom, instead of where people typically pull a fib from swing high to swing low and they get the 1.618 at the top, right? Like in this example over here. I like to pull fibs that way when I want downside targets, and it's helped me. And you could ask anyone here in this community that's been using this. I've been doing this now for over 1.5 years, and it's just mind-blowing how accurate you can get on not only short-term targets, but long-term. So that aligns with this level right here that I mapped out, somewhere between 0.042 and 0.043. And now you know exactly how I got that. So now that we have that level, look at this potential support that is currently in play and how it intersects with this price target over here of 0.042 right at the end of September. So maybe the Hex community can use this song, Wake Me Up When September Ends, as their new anthem. But jokes aside, we basically know that the month of September is important for Hex. Hex has a hexagon as their symbolism. That's what it's named after. And the hexagon is the symbol of Saturn, and that is tied to everything with Hex. And if we look over here, we can see that the current all-time high happened in September 2021. Maybe it's easier to see on this chart over here. It happened in September 2021. That was the start of the Shemitah, literally right here, when Hex hit the all-time high. And now we're here in this end of the Jubilee into the month of September. So perhaps this is an as above, so below kind of, let me take all this noise off and you can see what I mean. It's an as above, so below energy. That would make a lot of sense to me. So now let's get back to this EHEX chart that we're looking at. We have this long-term one, and since we hit my target, let's zoom in a little. Actually, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to like the 4-hour chart. And I just want to show you guys this parallel channel that I have. And it broke out of this parallel channel that we had going on for about 24 days, another 24. Alrighty. Well, I'll share my charting wisdom with all of you now, and listen carefully, because whether you like this project or hate it, or whether you're heavily invested in it or you don't have a single penny in this project, you will still learn the skills of TA by watching this and taking notes. Remember that. Every coin I cover is an opportunity for you to sharpen your skills at analyzing the charts on your own and becoming a self-reliant investor. That's what this community is all about. So I want us to consider the Wyckoff method. This sharp move down to up indicates to me that this is a micro buying climax at around 0.006 cents. Then this move to my target recently of 0.003 would be your micro selling climax. Then this move right here would be your automatic rally. And then what comes next, if you fail to hold this support that we're trading at right now, which is clear support, you can see in the candle structure, that this can either be one, a double bottom, which would be a retest of this red line, or what would be called a spring. So if we have a micro spring, in this case because of bullish conditions not being met, well, we need to reference the all-time Hex chart right over here. And we could look back at this horizontal trading range to see what was going on back here in this moment between May 2020 to December 2020. And right here at this low, which also came in September, think about that, September 2020, it hit 0.021. I'll type it out for you. 0.021. That's what it would be. Now, that's 21. That's Saturn in the month of September. So I'm even blown away. So if we have this micro spring, that would be the level I would consider. And this is a level that I've also shared before. And now that we have hit the 003 target, and after hitting the last 4 public quote unquote predictions on this coin and its price action back to back to back to back, I believe I've got the Hex community's attention now. And they're more than open-minded to my outlook and are more willing to utilize my strategies and allow the method to my madness. So this 0.021 cent target on eHex is what I have in mind. And if I was to pull a trend line, as you can see here, based on the rejections on August 3rd, I'm actually going to show you on this chart, rejections on August 3rd, rejections over here. And if we follow the support that we've been on recently, it brings us into alignment with the end of, let me just extend this line out by double clicking and put extend right line. I'm going to zoom out here. And we could see by the end of September, which would be 29th, we are right there at 0.021, September 28th. That aligns with what I shared earlier regarding PHEX at 0.042 right here. Those are 2 numbers of Saturn, by the way. You have 21, you have 42. So that's it. Those are my downside targets on both PHEX and eHex, and I would consider they happen almost at the same time. And I also have nothing bullish to add here, simply because for eHex, that's over a 99% correction from all-time highs, and for PHEX, it's almost corrected 90% off of this high, and it's only been 100 days since that moment. It just launched so recently. That's not looking good. And I'll continue to update the Hex community as needed, but for now, let's just let this play out, because with a potential Black Swan event coming in a couple weeks and how this project is already so beat up and bruised, it's not easy to be optimistic, especially with a clear continuation to the downside, with clear lower targets to consider. And of course, if I feel a pivot is in the cards, I'll share that update then. But I wouldn't be surprised if we had our September 2021 as above, so below connected to Shemitah and Jubilee. And we have even right back here, when we went into these really deep targets in September 2020, another connection to the lows. So this September month is crucial for Hex. This kind of sounds like a buying opportunity for me. Sorry, not for me, but for the people that are interested in this project. I hope that helps. And now we're going to be moving on to Injective. And also shout out to all the people in the Hex community that have been showing my work some love. All right. Wow. Okay, we're looking at Injective. Beautiful automatic rally. So we have swing high to swing low. We had a jolt up right once we broke the 382, like I teach. The 382 is your trigger point to the finality of the automatic rally regarding upside. And then any breaks below the 0.5 fib would be conclusion of your automatic rally, which would then swipe you down to the 236. So we're holding right now. And this is a clean double top for me, so I don't like that. The slight rejections below the 702 tells me that's a sign of weakness. And it's a GTFO moment if you start trading below the 0.5 fib. So this is in automatic rally territory, and it gave an opportunity of about 240 days to get in around $1.50 for a move of 400 to 500%. Okay, so that's the beauty of an automatic rally. I hope all of these examples that we've shown over the past year help us in the next cycle of how to utilize this gnosis in advance. But the most important thing is once we start moving bullish in 2024, we need to prepare for the buying climax. That's what most people didn't react to last cycle. They got way too greedy. So we're going to be way ahead of the game because we mastered the automatic rally and we mastered the selling climax. And how many examples of springs have we nailed? I mean, it's incredible. So we've been really leveling up in our training here, and we have to apply it now. So the de-risking that we did on XRP into 80 to 90 cents was a good opportunity to practice, to not get lost in the sauce of everyone else's opinions and just see it for what it is. You can't just disregard the TA. So Injective, pulling off the automatic rally, looking beautiful, getting a little double top energy. I don't feel confident that it can move up much higher than the 702 unless there's some sort of miracle that happens with Bitcoin. But for now, I'd be looking to de-risk if I had this, especially if I was building positions down here, with us being moments away from a potential black swan event. So keep that in mind. This injective chart looks pretty decent. Now, would Waters invest in this? No. The reason why is because we have no chart data before C19. It just launched at the perfect time, and it was in the right place at the right time, because in November of 2020, where it launched, Bitcoin was just breaking into price discovery. Just around Thanksgiving, it was starting to break prior all-time highs. The 2017 $19,000 Bitcoin was being broken right then. So this thing just got lucky. It came out at the right time, when the Federal Reserve was just printing money into fucking oblivion, all right? So you can't trust something that's never really been beaten up, all right? And the way I like to invest is I invest in stuff that I know could get knocked out and get back up. And this hasn't really done anything, you know? I mean, yes, it had a nice buyback, but it returned pretty much back to the launch price in the so-called bear market. So it did, go ahead onto losing 95% of its value, 96% of its value. That's what everything does. That's a big correction. Then, of course, it had its automatic rally buyback of 400 to 500%. This is what we teach. It's what we've been talking about now for over half a year of how to really dial this all in. So I would never invest in stuff like this. I need chart history, and this is speculative at best. And maybe if it could get through this year and it could recover after any deeper corrections, we'll see what happens with it. Or if it doesn't take a big hit, if there is an event, then that would show me it's a sign of strength. And all things considered, I need to feel confident that it could go through the trenches. Bitcoin can go through the trenches. All this other stuff, not the case. I mean, even ETH in 2018 lost 95% of its value. That's a huge correction for what is now the second biggest market cap crypto. Okay. We're going to go to Icon. This is a project we used to talk a lot about around the time I started my Red Pill podcast. So what we're going to look at here is the all-time chart. And we have buying climax on the macro, selling climax on the macro, automatic rally, macro, and now we're back at double bottom territory, which could very well become a deeper correction into 10 cents. So this is clearly weak. In the macro, it did not break prior all-time high of 2018, kind of like XRP. This isn't looking so great. OG coin, that was in that 2017 cycle. Now look at how this was the C19 crash, by the way. We are pretty much trading back at those levels. So yeah, this is not the greatest opportunity. I know we talked about it before a couple of years ago. But ever since this recent bear market, this is showing a lot of weakness. Very, very weak. It sliced up to the 382, which is technically a micro automatic rally, like I teach, but it didn't go much higher, which again is a sign of weakness. As opposed to the last chart we were just looking at, injective, it went all the way up into almost the 702 fib. So this is very weak. But if this can hold out through the end of this year and then get back above the 236, and more ideally, I want to pull an all-time fib and show you what's up. If we it's the same level pretty much. If we could get above 33 cents and ideally above 67 and break this prior automatic rally, what that tells me is that's going to potentially head up into an SOS, which could then become a new bull cycle. I just wouldn't bet the farm on it, So at these levels that we could be getting of 10 cents or slightly lower, up to the past, the automatic rally is 2,000 to 3,000%, guys. So there's a ton of opportunity there if it could make it through the fucking, the big bang. So just be cautious. And we have Saturnian symbolism in this project. Now, I'm going to close out some confusion with you guys. Some people think that Bitcoin is Saturn. No, Bitcoin is the sun. All right. Satoshi is Saturn. Satoshi makes a sun, right? When you have a kid, you call it your daughter, your son. So let's clear that confusion, all right? Now, XRP is not Jupiter. Ripple is Jupiter, all right? So let's just I hope you guys are, stay with me here on some of these things. I know if you're new, this could be overwhelming, and that's okay. This isn't, trying to, it's just we have been talking about this for almost 3 years now, and there is confusion. So when we talked about the Saturnian symbolism and icon, it's clear as day to me that's a Saturn symbol. Look at what Hex is going through right now. Same kind of chart energy, all right? So the things that are directly Saturnian, that is going to get fleeced post-Shemitah year. I mean, duh, that's what the Shemitah is. It's the harvest. He swings the scythe, game over. And we're moving into the year of Jupiter, but that's positive for Ripple. You got to think Ripple is 27, Jupiter is 27, same cipher. I mean, there is crossover here, but what we would want to think is that Ripple is Jupiter, and it's the son of Jupiter is the X, is XRP. They're not the same, right? One's the token of the company, okay? Anywho, perhaps in 2024, this can kind of recover slightly, but we're going to have to see then. Tons of upside opportunity. It's a venture capital play, not more than 3% of your portfolio. Be cautious. Do your research. Of course, this is not financial advice. Now, we're going to be looking at Multivac, which I always laugh at because its ticker is MTV. Bring back MTV. Okay, apologies on this chart. We do have some sort of liquidity weirdness going on in this single wick, which makes the chart look pretty awkward. But I don't love this chart at all. We did make a slightly new all-time high in 2021, but a bull trap. Now it's down 97%. And if I pulled a fib here, we didn't actually go up even more than the 236. So in the macro perspective, breaking the 236 would be ideal. The 382 would be really ideal. And then I do suspect that this can have another run. And if we look at March 2020, that's right here. That was a C19 crash. We are technically above it. But what I will tell you is I'm going to use that as a price target. So if we drop below this and have a deeper correction, that's probably where we're coming down to. I'm going to mark off that level for you guys. It's right here. So that's March 2020. That was when it all went down. And that's 0.00025. That would be an additional loss of 77% from here. Okay, so weak chart in the macro, weak chart since this bear market, no real buyback energy whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and assume that volume is, we're just looking at the KuCoin exchange. I mean, that doesn't really help us with that particular thing, but I mean, based on how choppy and how it's been holding this particular level without much of a jump up or down for almost 500 days, that's a sign of low volume. And nobody really cares about this thing. And then the deeper correction opportunity is totally in the cards because we're only, 30% away from getting back to a double bottom. It's could drop out very quickly. And that dropout would be more than likely to happen before the end of this year. So I wouldn't touch this thing. This doesn't look like much of an opportunity to me. Very weak chart. And at best, has to get through and hold this line because tapping on it and then still being within a tight band, it doesn't make me confident. So I'm going to wrap up this episode here, family. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. It looks like XRP is getting a little bit of recovery energy right now, setting up for later on today when the Chicago Mercantile Exchange opens. We're going to see how things go. Bitcoin dominance kind of hovering around 50%. We did get a little sell-off on precious metals into the end of the week. We know that that will be opening up later tonight as well with Forex and the Dow Jones. Then we're moving into kind of like a transition week because it's the week before 9/11 and Rosh Hashanah and then 2 weeks before the FOMC. So we are more than likely moving into new moon kind of essence because we got to get through this right here, which is the third quarter moon, which is a typical pivot point. I've taught that in a lot of my work. It's 3 days away. Call it 2 days after this podcast comes out. And then that is typically where we would anticipate the move into the new moon, which is more likely up than down. And that's just short term. Okay, we're talking very short term. Ultimately, the month of September tends to end red. And that's where we're still focused on buying energy right now. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up here. I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure to vote on the altcoins in the comments below in the Patreon section. And I appreciate every single one of you. Wishing you a beautiful rest of your weekend in the Matrix. Much love.